What if the British prevented the 1845 to 1849 Irish Great Famine? Today we're asking if one of the greatest famines of the Western world in recent history never happened. A famine that was caused more by racism and social stratification than by actual loss of food. So the lowdown on the Irish famine. Well, the Great Famine, or the Great Hunger, was a period of mass starvation, disease, and emigration in Ireland between 1845 and 1849. It is sometimes referred to, mostly outside Ireland, as the Irish Potato Famine because about two-fifths of the population was solely reliant on this cheap crop for a number of historical reasons. During the famine, about 1 million people died, and a million more emigrated from Ireland, causing the island's population to fall by between 20% and 25%. The approximate cause of famine was potato blight, which ravaged potato crops throughout Europe during the 1840s. However, the impact in Ireland was disproportionate, as one-third of the population was dependent on the potato for a range of reasons. However, there was also another reason why the Irish famine was so devastating. The British were a bunch of stuffy, uptight people who basically pinched pockets and forced Ireland to keep exporting food even at the expense of the lives of innocent people. Basically, at the height of the famine, Ireland was exporting tons of food that could have gone to feed Irish people, yet the British passed a series of corn laws and other laws that prevented people from actually gaining access to that food. Britain really didn't like Ireland, primarily for the religious differences between the two groups. In actuality, without the Irish famine, a bunch of things would be different, especially in the United States. So if Britain decided to not be as stuffy and uptight, and they actually helped Ireland, the famine could easily be prevented. So what if this famine was actually prevented? Well, Irish immigration to the United States during the Great Famine in Ireland was substantial and had a lasting impact on the economy of the United States. In 1990, 44 million Americans claimed Irish ethnicity. Many of these citizens can trace their ancestry to the Great Famine from 1845 to 1852, when 300 Irish would disembark daily in New York City. By 1850, the United States had 961,719 Irish citizens. 42% of them were born in Ireland. This comprised 43% of all foreign-born people of the United States at the time. New York City actually had about 26% of the population in Manhattan in 1855 as Irish, and 60% of the inhabitants of Manhattan as Irish in 1900. The key component affected by this emigration was the labor force. Additionally, this rise in population also helped decide the outcome of the Civil War. The Irish immigrants who found their way to the South during the Great Famine saw the situation between the North and the South not unlike their previous situation between Ireland and Britain, where they had felt exploited because while there was free trade between Ireland and Britain, Ireland provided potatoes and beef to England while receiving manufactured goods in return. Because the Irish immigrants in the South could understand the plight of their new home, many willingly took up arms against the North during the Civil War. To counter this, the Union Army employed 144,000 Irish-born troops during the war, most of whom were drafted to serve. While a draftee could elude duty by paying $300, most Irish immigrants were too poor to do so and had to fight. So, the Irish were willing to work for cheap and would sometimes work for as little as 50 cents a day. Eventually, it became too uneconomical not to hire them. America's early network of roads, railways, and canals right across the country owes much to the Irishman with his strong back and ability to wield a shovel or pickaxe from dawn until dusk. During a time when the United States was starting to unlock its industrial potential and continue to grow west, Irish immigration helped to give the United States the one resource keeping its economy expanding: new labor. Without the Great Famine, and if Britain grew a heart and solved the issue, of course Ireland would be much more crowded. Over 40 million people, rather than its current 4 million, would live in Ireland. And the United States will lose that same 40 million people as well, putting it at a population less than 300 million people today. The U.S. economy was growing rapidly in the 1800s and needed all of the cheap labor that it could get. Without Irish help, the U.S. would not grow as fast as it did economically and would take longer into the 20th century to become a world power. It would also not have such a high GDP today, with a smaller workforce and less infrastructure in place. In addition to the Irish help on the economy, the Irish helped add many factors to American culture. Catholicism in America would be greatly hindered due to a lack of Irishmen, and St. Patrick's Day you can say goodbye to. There are many other factors that would change in America due to a lack of Irish, but the main one would be a weakening of U.S. power. Basically, Irish propelled U.S. industrial power at the time when it was growing. So without that essential boost in its history, the U.S. would not be where it is today. So thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe for more great content. This is Scholar of the World signing out.